Congressional negotiators have agreed on what they're calling a framework for the next government funding bill.
Well, lawmakers say they expect to finalize and vote on the legislation next week. Congress has until Friday to avoid a partial government shutdown, but lawmakers are expected to pass a one-week extension to buy them more time to work on the final bill.
So what's really going on here? CBS News Congressional correspondent Scott MacFarlane joins us now from the Russell Senate building, a place you know very well. Scott, what do we know about this framework, what's agreed upon, and what we might all expect?
We can all agree that only in Washington is a framework considered big-time progress.
Right.
Let me give you an analogy. Let's assume you have a term paper due tomorrow in college. Having a framework is like having the first paragraph done. You still have to write the rest of the paper, and it's still due tomorrow, and presumably you still want a good grade. So there's much more to do, but the framework means they have a top-line number. They know the likely overall cost of this plan to fund the government and keep the lights on. About $800 billion in military spending, about $1.5 trillion for the overall federal government. But therein lies the issue. There's a balancing act perennially between Democrats and Republicans as how much should be spent on military and how much should be spent on everything else. Republicans are arguing Democrats who've controlled the Senate and the House and the White House have already spent an awful lot of Americans' money on things involving non-military expenses. And Republicans say there is a pressing need to increase the proportion of money spent on Defense Department programs. They're going to hash all that out. They've already punted the deadline, or they've prepared themselves to punt the deadline to next week. And during this home stretch, as they try to write this term paper, they're going to balance out that issue.
That always resonates with me, the idea of working right up to that deadline. But when we're talking about that balancing act between Republicans and Democrats, Scott, obviously the House leadership is changing in January. How has all of that been affecting the dynamics of these negotiations?
It's an enormous complication. Republicans take control of the U.S. House, which would give them enormous leverage and an enormous negotiating tool if this were to be decided next year. Right now, Democrats control both the House and the Senate. And when that changes, the positioning, the jockeying for leverage changes quite a bit. So there is a balance right now between Republicans saying, if you don't get this done under our terms now, we'll get to dictate the terms come January. That's part of the complication here. And it's why there's such a symmetry to what happened in 2018 when there was a government shutdown for 35 days because control of the House was poised to flip over. It complicates things. One of the reasons why they're so close to the deadline, and there's at least an appreciable concern of a government shutdown.
Why do I always feel like there's always the possibility of a government shutdown,
always,
right?
especially around the holidays.
Getting agreements is so difficult. But to your point, Scott, something that seems to be in Republicans' favor is that one aspect of this framework, of this bill, would be potential changes to the Electoral college count process. What can you tell us about what that is and how that's playing into all this?
At one moment in time, Errol, it's hard to think of a more obscure law than the Electoral Count Act, but it became wildly relevant on January 6, 2021, when there was that effort to block the electoral count, which ended up triggering, or at least partly triggering, an insurrection here at the U.S. Capitol. The Senate is trying at this 11th hour to add the Electoral Count Act modernization, updating this old law and make it part of that plan to keep the government open, fold it into that omnibus spending plan. Leading this effort is Senate Rules Committee Chair Amy Klobuchar, the Democratic senator from Minnesota, explaining why they have to update this old law.
This antiquated law was used as an excuse by an angry mob to invade the Capitol to try to stop the will of the people. And the way it's set up now, any rogue senator or representative from either party could delay the count for potentially days, registering objections.
Let me try to make this simple. Here's what changes. Under current law, just one senator or one member of the House can object to a state's electoral count votes, and it triggers this long debate like we saw in 2021. Under the new law they're proposing and trying to pass next week, you'd need 20% of the U.S. House and U.S. senators to object to trigger the type of lengthy debate we saw in 2021. Raises the threshold. It stops any one rogue actor from stopping democracy.
Which sounds like a good thing. Scott MacFarlane, we appreciate you explaining all of that for us.